Okay, clock on the wall says 3:30, so why don't we go ahead and get started. Welcome to the webinar today, everyone. My name is Matt Jacobson. I am the online learning coordinator for the Learning Technology Center of Illinois. Today, we will be learning about other duties as assigned, collaboration tools for librarians. As we are getting ourselves ready to start up today, I'd like to remind everyone that we are recording this webinar. Recordings will be posted on YouTube within 24 to 48 hours of the end of the webinar today. Those of you in attendance live can earn PD credit. To earn that PD credit, you'll need to complete an evaluation and submit it. Those evaluations will be sent to the email you use to register for this webinar, also within 24 to 48 hours from the end of the webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to type your questions into the chat or the Q&A. If you are using the chat, please make sure to switch the drop down in the chat window to read everyone in the little blue button so that we can all benefit from the answers to your questions. We do have a smaller audience today. You will remain on mute until the end of the webinar today, but there will be an opportunity for Q&A, and we'll open up mics at the end of the presentation if you would like to participate. Without further ado, today we are joined by Holly Kelly, the Regional EdTech Coordinator for the LTC in East Central Illinois, and Colleen Kaplan, the Digital Learning Outreach Specialist for the Learning Technology Center of Illinois. I am proud and very grateful to be able to call these folks coworkers. And lurking in the background somewhere is also Mr. Brian Bates, who will be helping out in the chat for the first portion of this webinar. So ladies, without further ado, please feel free to take it away.
Thanks, Matt. And we are as well grateful to work with you and Brian. So thank you for the great introduction.
All right. So hi, everybody. My name is actually Holly. You are first. Before we get started, there is a bit.ly that is on your screen. It's bit.ly/library sharing 22. The link is also in the chat, so you can click that and it should pop open. If you'd like to follow along, the slide deck is a great one to bookmark. So if you are on Google Chrome like I am, you can click this little star up in your address bar to bookmark the slide deck and come back to, because it has lots of great links, resources, and tutorials that you can look at after today's webinar. All right, Holly, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Colleen. Hi, everyone. I'm Holly Kelly with the Learning Technology Center, and I am a Regional EdTech Coordinator for the eastern part of the state, Eastern Central. And I have an awesome job of being able to work with educators and technology directors, my colleagues, library media specialists. I'm able to provide professional development for those groups. And I am really glad that I'm in this position to be able to help so many in Illinois. So thanks, Colleen.
And I'm Colleen Kaplan. I'm the Digital Learning Outreach Specialist. Also work for the LTC. Prior to joining the LTC, I was an English teacher and a technology coach. So I've been in education since 2010. And my role at the LTC is to help create resources and supports and programming for what I call special interest groups. So groups like librarians, CTE teachers, special ed teachers, parent liaisons, parents and guardians, all of those people that don't always need all the traditional here's how to use Google Classroom sort of PD. That falls under sort of my area. And that's how I started working with Holly to create some resources and workshops and webinars specifically targeted for helping librarians better utilize technology to streamline their jobs, make their lives easier, and make their work more impactful in their school buildings. Holly, do you want to talk about this slide?
Sure. So with Colleen and Matt and Brian and I working with the LTC, the Learning Technology Center, I always try to describe it. It basically is a group of amazing individuals that cover all things ed tech. We all have different specialties. And while I may not have, or Colleen may not have all of the answers or specifically what you're looking for, there is someone on the team that is always able to help, even with questions that I have. So I know also with questions that all districts and teachers have as well. With that being said, the LTC website is a plethora of amazing resources. The Twitter handles there if you wanted to join the community page to be able to post questions. Also, if you wanted to get added to the monthly newsletter, there's also webinars, recordings like we're on right now. If you wanted to attend other events and be able to receive PD, you can go to that events page. And then also there's online learning with self-paced modules that you can also earn PD hours for as well. So if you ever have any questions with ed tech or technology in your building or district, the LTC can definitely help. Feel free to check out these amazing resources or reach out to one of us on the call as well. Did you want to add anything else too about the LTC?
Nope, just
Colleen?
double checking that people can see, you can see my screen, correct?
Absolutely, Colleen.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, good. Just double checking. All right, so today's loose agenda is we are going to be talking about tools that can be used in various ways in your role as a librarian or library media specialist to help you collaborate with people in your building, whether they are students, community members, other faculty and staff. We're going to talk about Jamboard, or the Microsoft version, which is Whiteboard, Flipgrid, Padlet, and if we have time, we are also going to touch on a website called Dotstorming.
Yeah, and also too, I love this workshop in general and the topic. Being a library media specialist, just with that why, Colleen, before we get started here, being a past library media specialist, it's so important to develop a collaborative culture as a librarian, because instructional and curriculum planning is one of the most important roles, especially for a 21st century library media specialist. So being able to find effective collaboration between teachers, librarians and students is really something that was always a passion of mine, to be able to best help those groups, students and educators, and being able to give them a voice and a platform. So like Colleen said, with these, we'll cover the majority, and two of them are very similar. So if we cover one, you'll get the gist of the other. So don't fret if we don't cover both Padlet and Dotstorming, as it said there. Thanks, Colleen.
All right, so we are going to hop in and get our feet wet. And before we get too deep into new tools, we do want to remind you that a lot of the things that we're doing today, if you really boil it down to the nugget, to the base of like your goal, like what you're really trying to get to and really trying to do with your community, there's a pretty good chance you could do that with apps and tools that you already have on your platform. So for example, you can collaborate with your Google Docs or Sheets, slides, and forms. A really good example is this What Are You Reading that we use with our library media specialist monthly networking meeting. It is a collaborative community Google Sheets. It's something that if you wanted to be fancy, you could turn it into Dotstorming or Padlet or Flipgrid or lots of other things. But you can also do the same exact type of activity in a much more simple way if that's your jam. So we don't want to overwhelm you with too many options today or make you feel like you are not doing enough, when really we want you to just be using the tools in an impactful way. And there's just lots of ways to do that since there's so many options online. So you can have collaboration with Office 365 or collaboration with your Google Drive. You can also communicate through Google Groups or through Microsoft Teams. So lots of ways to really boil down some of the activities that we're going to show you today into much more simple terms with just using what you already have.
Colleen, are you able to click on that example there?
Yeah, let's hop over to there.
And like Colleen said, with us showing all of these different ed tech tools, no one expects you to go and learn all of them. But if you go and explore one that you've never been in and see if it jives, or you can be able to accomplish a collaborative task with your audience, then go ahead and try it and get feedback. But like Colleen said with this, if you don't want to go out, and if your school doesn't have one of these collaborative tools like Dotstorming, tap into the resources that your school already has. And in this case, if you're a Google school, this is just a Google Sheet. We added some fun colors there. We changed the text, which is just some formatting things. We've been able to add some response validation there with being able to have drop-down boxes. But ultimately, what you can see here is many people, different people from all around the state, collaborating in one place, sharing ideas, and other people being able to go back to this document. And it is living, which means that we can come back at any time and it's constantly being updated, and be able to use this as a reference to see what other people in this case are reading, specifically library media specialists. So, and this document, when we do share it, we do have a conversation about it, how to navigate it. So definitely look at the resources you have. And in this case, this is just a Google Sheet that you can lifetime collaborate and share ideas. Thanks, Colleen, for sharing that.
I was talking and didn't realize I was on mute. I was like, yep, okay, let's keep going. All right, so the first tools that we are going to talk about today is Jamboard, which is a digital whiteboarding tool. If you are a Google school, you should have access to Jamboard along with all of your other Google apps. If you are a Microsoft school and use Microsoft Office 365, you also have access to what's called Microsoft Whiteboard, which works almost identically to what you're going to see with Jamboard. So a lot of times we hear, well, what if I'm this type of school? What if I'm that type of school? These types of activities that we're going to show you using a Jamboard can really be applied across a couple different types of apps that you might have access to as part of your platform. Platform. That's the word that we decided to use for it. So Holly, why don't we talk about Jamboard, and you can talk and I'll drive the screen here and see what it looks like.
Yeah, perfect. Colleen, I appreciate you with the Jamboard word, because it's usually me with what word is it? So I appreciate that it wasn't me.
I'm also a little distracted. We're home today. One of my sons has a fever, and so we just haven't been hanging out, and my older one tried to sneak into the webinar and then got mad that he couldn't. So that's apparently my preschooler is very into collaboration tools for librarians. So slightly distracted, but getting back into it.
That's okay. We're after school hours at this point. So, okay. So Jamboard, I will mention, sometimes people get a little confused with Jamboard. Jamboard is actually a real board, a whiteboard that you can have in your classroom. And then Jamboard then came out with this digital whiteboard. So in this case, when we're talking about a Jamboard, we're jamming together on a digital whiteboard. Ultimately, we're able to edit an application, an ed tech tool, all at the same time with some bells and whistles as well. So Colleen, go ahead and click there and let's get into this Jamboard. If you are on this call, you are welcome to get into this Jamboard as well. Colleen and I both highly encourage you to click on that link there in the presentation for the holiday program. It's on slide 9 there. And then let me see if I click it, Colleen, I'm not even in it, but it will help because then we can see.
I think you must have it open in another window. It says you're here.
Oh, it is perfect. Well, that's perfect. That's what I wanted. So as of right now, so Colleen is on this Jamboard, and ultimately she has created this funky background here with this holiday festive background that she cannot move around, which is really nice because if you're a Seesaw user, you know that backgrounds sometimes can get moved or students can move them. But with Jamboard, you can set it as a background template so no one can move it. Colleen, go ahead and go to frame 2 at the very top. And you'll notice when you first get into Jamboard, this is what it looks like before you add a background. So ultimately, when I am going to be in Jamboard here, and I'm going to add some things here. To the left of Jamboard, if we're just looking at the navigational screen here, On the very left-hand side, I call that the kickstand, the left kickstand. So a term I made up, maybe someone else uses it and I heard it somewhere, but ultimately this is where our bells and whistles are. This is where we can edit this digital whiteboard, which we all can edit at the same time. And 50 people can edit a Jamboard now. It used to be 20 and now has been upgraded to 50, which is really helpful because when it was 20 and you had a class of 35, we were having to create multiple Jamboards and assigning ones to students. So definitely an upgrade I was glad to see. Ultimately, the very first on the left kick stand there, we have the pen that you can be able to write. So go ahead, Colleen, pick one of those and then just scribble on this Jamboard so we can see it. I will mention here that Colleen is scribbling. It looks like she started off with a cursive L there. The nice thing about Jamboard, and one of the things that does differentiate it against some of the other ed tech tools in Google, this Google Suite or Workspace for Education, is that it does have artificial intelligence. So depending on what application you're using, in this case, I'm assuming, Colleen, you're on a MacBook. But
Yep.
if you're using an Android, an iPhone, or an iPad, there can be assistive drawing tools that you can actually begin drawing the face of a cat, and then you can select different cats. Or in this case, if you don't have nice handwriting, if you're using an iPad, although Colleen, are you using a
Very
pen?
slow.
Wow, that is like really impressive. I am not that good. But with the assistive drawing tools here, if you're on an iPad, when you begin drawing a circle, it will actually perfect it to a perfect circle. So just something to keep in mind if you are a veteran Jamboard user and you've never used it on an iPad, try it on an iPad because you have assistive drawing tools under that pen. So yeah, so if Colleen was on an iPad when she's drawing that cat, a bar will present itself at the bottom that has different images of cats. So pretty cool.
Cool. I did not know it did that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So try it on an iPad, Colleen. So Colleen, go to the left, and then we have the eraser. So just like a board, or if you're trying to erase something, you can erase. There's also the pointer if you're wanting to get off of the pen or the eraser, just to be able to get back to using the pointer. You also have the ability in the kickstand there to add a sticky note. And this is nice because you can add multiple sticky notes, change the colors. For example, if you're doing a response with a book club and you're having someone do a synopsis, a one-sentence synopsis of the chapter, or a word that describes how you were feeling after you read that chapter, this is really nice because you can already have these copied and paste, and then your people that are collaborating can just select a sticky note. So Colleen, go ahead and copy and paste that sticky note a few times. Yep, and there we go. And then she can duplicate that many times. She can change the color, the size. She can flip that sticky note as well. She can change the orientation of it. And then also too, you can edit it as well with that. With that being said, if everyone has editing access, someone else is also able to edit a sticky note, which can be really positive because it really does foster positive collaboration and positivity between students, because it really does teach students to how to appropriately collaborate. And sometimes that goes through the trials of first not collaborating appropriately, so we can then teach that. Going back to the kickstand there on the left, you can also add images, which is really nice. You can upload from your computer by URL, your camera, your Google image search, your Drive, and Google Photos as well. So Colleen's doing a Google search for a cat here, and then she can insert a cat. And just like the sticky note, she can change the orientation of it. She can change the size, duplicate it, or delete it as well.
If I really want to, I can come and I can draw on it.
Yep, absolutely.
All right.
And then also a newer feature this year, there used to just be the circle, but now we have a few different shapes here as well. I use this pointer a lot when I do check-ins with students, and they're pointing to one of the screens or one of the pictures that they're identifying with as a start off to a class that I'm in. Because Jamboard, I really do like in the library media role, when which we all can identify with as librarians, teachers get to see their kids every day. We maybe see a class 1, 2, 3 times a year. So it's like being on a first date every time we go into a classroom where we're having to introduce ourselves, we're having to give a little spiel, we're having to gain respect from those students in a very short period of time. And we're really having to build rapport with those students. So I really enjoy Jamboard because you can do a quick check-in or a quick activity with students where we're all on the same jam and collaborating together. And then it also allows for those conversations with digital citizenship, being appropriate, being a responsible decision maker online when we're having to collaborate together, especially with students. And then Colleen, you can also add text there, and I see her kind of playing around here. The best way with Jamboard is just get in and do what Colleen's doing. Go ahead and play and see what options you can use here. And then also too, there's also the laser pointer. Colleen, you've just recently started using Jamboard within the last probably the last year, right?
Yes.
So
So
what do
before
you
I
like
came to
about
work at
it?
the LTC, I worked at a Microsoft school. So we didn't use these Google tools, so I was not familiar with them. Jamboard I like because it is so simple. There's just a couple options down the side. And I can attest that I have learned it simply by clicking around being like, I wonder what this does. Because the nice thing is there's not a ton of options. So you don't have to worry about breaking it. A lot of teachers I know, they don't want to start or try and learn something new by poking around because they're worried they're going to break it. There is no way to break a Jamboard. So the easiest way that I have found is to just do what I did here and just keep adding things on and fiddling around with it. And then before you know it, you will find yourself cruising. I also like this laser pointer because like I'm clicking and I'm holding and dragging my mouse around. And I like that it lingers for a second because it's not, kids aren't always looking exactly at the screen at the right time. So this can catch their attention. Just that little bit of movement is really nice.
Colleen, one thing I just shared with you in chat there, I think I just sent it to you. Can you open up that jam for me really quick? There, on this, you have an option when you're or when you click the snowman, the 3 dots, you have the option of order. And a lot of people say like, well, why is order important? So you can see from this Jamboard, this is for a younger group or older, getting started, getting ready to get into a class, just talking about what we're worried about, putting something out there. And then ultimately, Colleen, the one that says I'm worried about my test, go ahead and drag and drop that and feed that into the worry monster there.
I don't have
editing. All right, so I'm going to make you an editor right now.
How did you get it? Is this a GIF that you added on?
I did. It is. It's 2 different GIFs, and I put the eyes in front of the monster. And then I use that order feature. So then I think I made you an editor now, Colleen.
There we go.
Yep. So ultimately, if Colleen writes, I'm worried about my test, we can kind of have a conversation about that. And ultimately, we can say, we have that worry. It's not necessarily going away, but during our time together, it's that monster's responsibility to take it, and we can focus on what we need to do. I was able to do that and feed the worry monster with that order feature. So, and that's just an image, and that's where that order really comes in handy, because we can stack things and make things look layered. So in this case, essentially we're just making it disappear, and for a little kid, the worry monster is eating their worry. So yep. So just an example of that we didn't have on that last slide.
Yeah.
So also too, great thing Colleen just mentioned, I didn't have sharing rights with her. So just like all of the Google applications there, like Docs and Sheets and Slides, that share feature is the same and consistent. So if you're a Google user, we would click that share, and then we can be able to share those with students, get the link, etc. And then in Jamboard, they're not called pages or slides. Can see the different frames, the multiple frames that you can have. You can duplicate them. So like, for example, Colleen, click the down caret on your 1 to 2 frame at the very top.
Yep, I got it.
And then if you click the snowman and click duplicate, Then if she wants to use the same background or use it for multiple students, you can do that. So you're not having to redo that process every time. And then lastly, with Jamboard, there's a lot of other great features, but I will mention one thing that was added that I do appreciate is that revision history, just like with Google Docs, and being able to see version history, excuse me, with Google Docs or Google Sheets or cell version history in Google Sheets, you can get the version history of a Jamboard, which has been relatively new as well. So if something happens and you're afraid, oh golly, what if I totally messed this up? Or if you wanted to reuse it and you needed the bones again, you could go through and be able to restore the version to the original, which is really nice. Any last, I am cognizant of time here, Colleen. So any last things about Jamboard?
The last thing that I do want to talk about is this line here, the what is your favorite holiday program? We got that simply by, I have to move my little light here, setting the background. So if you have an image that you wanted to set as the background that you make in Canva or somewhere else, a screenshot, if you wanted to take a screenshot of a passage off of your digital textbook or something like that, click set background. There's a couple different patterns here that you can choose from: solid colors, graphing, things like that, or you have the ability to upload your own image. So this was an image I made in Canva. I added what is your favorite holiday program, dropped it in here, and then it has a nice festive spot where students can add their sticky notes. But you can also use this to create graphic organizers, collaborative projects like Venn diagrams. There's so many different ways that you can use this to really change the arc of the assignment that you're doing. So whatever you might be doing with your students, whether it's brainstorming, research, book reviews, you name it, this is setting the background can really help fine tune the activity that you are trying to do with your students.
Yeah, and as we saw in the other one too, with the worry monster there, the background, really made it, the rest of it, come alive. If it was just the GIF, it may not totally be cohesive or make sense. Ultimately, though, allowing students and teachers a platform to be able to share ideas, see other people's ideas, and collaborate and communicate, it is really helpful and a great tool.
So if you go back into our slide deck, there's a ton of resources that Holly has collected for you. There's sample ones here that you can make copies of. Some are just straight up Jamboard activities, holiday battleship game. One of my favorite ones is on, there's slide 24, slide 25, and I believe 26 has some too. And 27, there's one where it's hidden. Do you know which one I'm talking about, with the magnifying glass one?
Oh yeah, that's one that let me right here, order matters. It's
Order
number
matters.
3. This is the same
one that I
example
just found I loved. Oh no, that's
oh
Worry
wait,
Monster.
let's go back to maybe this one. Yeah,
I was clicking around, here it is, and I found it and I was just mesmerized by it. This is one where everything is ordered, and as you move your magnifying glass around, you find things.
So yeah,
if Jamboard.
And not to take the creativity, I created this from the idea of Seesaw, because you can do this in Seesaw, but a lot of teachers who have Google or a higher level, they don't work with just the primary students, weren't using Seesaw. So when I went into Jamboard, I realized that we could do this in Jamboard, where that order matters, to be able to use the magnifying glass to navigate the screen. I will say the technique with this is matching the text to the background. So that's where you'll notice my text is mostly black and on the dark areas. That's where that technique comes from. But it really does show how you can amplify just a background, a magnifying glass image, and text to be able to have students have a little bit of fun, and then also be able to create this themselves.
Yeah, I love that one. That's one of my favorites. All right. So if you go into our slide deck on slides 24 through 27. And there are so many resources that Holly has pulled together for you. So those are there for you to go through after today's session to poke around with and see what you can find. All right, we're going to hop into now Flipgrid, which I'm going to talk about. If you go through the slides in here, the slides starting at slide 28 are going to be some instructional slides on how to use Flipgrid. So it's a great resource for you to come back to after I give you a very brief walkthrough on the app. There's also this link right here is something that a teacher made that was being shared on Twitter the other day. It is a getting started guide for teachers. It is specific to their district, but the only place that it is right here where it says they ECSD students. That's the only reference to that school district I found in the whole document. So if you just ignore that one little bit, sort of swap it for your school's email address, this can be a really good resource to come back to. It's from Christine McKee on her Twitter. She was sharing it the other day. So we are going to go into Flipgrid. There, right here, it says click here to join. There's a password now for Hello Flipgrid. If you've used Flipgrid in the past, Flipgrid used to have public grids that you were able to access for things like this, where it was professional development, where not everybody's from the same school or domain. But they have done away with those after not this past school year, but the year before. And now there are no longer public grids for people to access, which makes it a little bit harder when you are in a role that is community facing, like librarians tend to be. So instead, they have password protected grids that you're able to access. And so we set the password to Hello Flipgrid for this sample one, which I'm going to open up.
And it is case sensitive.
Yes, it is case sensitive. And then this has our Flipgrid board ready to go. So before we get too deep into that, do you want to go to just straight Flipgrid? When you go to flipgrid.com, you're going to see this screen. It has a login or sign up in the top right corner. I'm going to click login because I already have an account. If you do not have a Flipgrid account yet, it is completely free. Flipgrid used to be its own independent entity. It was created by teachers for teachers, which is why I think it's one of the best products out there. And then a couple of years ago, Microsoft bought out Flipgrid and made it completely free for everybody. So there are no like freemium where there's like a free level and a paid level and then a premium level. There is no subscriptions. It is 100% completely free for everybody. I believe they are SAPA compliant. Am I right with that, Holly?
Yes.
Okay, they are SAPA compliant. So you are good to use this in schools or districts. Just make sure your school or district has an agreement that is in the books or that you've piggybacked on. Once you are in Flipgrid, you start seeing your dashboard. I'm logged in as a teacher. The way that Flipgrid works is they very much have like a class and then an assignment structure. They just call it different things. There's a really good description on one of our slides, which I'm going to right here. A group is a class, and a topic is an activity or a lesson within that class. So when we're talking about groups and topics, that's what we're referring to. So in my groups here, this is the one that I just created. It's the what are you reading? I see that it's active. There's so many settings that we can go in and
I did just
edit.
submit a video there so you could see
Okay,
one response
great.
there, Colleen.
There's tons of control that you have as a teacher. You're able to fine tune a lot of things. When your students start submitting your answers, they will show up here. You can publish them, you can share them, you can view them. The Flipgrid camera also has tons of really amazing tools, which I'm going to flip over to this one and show you some of the tools.
And ultimately, if you've never been a part of a Flipgrid, or if you've never used Flipgrid, the best way to learn about it is click that link and add in with Colleen's. So you can see how you can create a video, change the background, and experience it as the user, because then that's what your students or your teachers will also experience as well. And it is one of the best ways to learn it.
There's a ton of backdrops that students can use. There's lots of like breaking news ones. There's museums, chalkboards. So you can really drop your students into just about any sort of environment. You also have the ability to upload a custom backdrop. That's what this plus sign is. So you can create a backdrop that is customized for your assignment or activity that you're doing with your students. You can do solid colors. Where are my solid colors? Just skip right over it. There we go. So you can just do solid color. There's breaking news ones that are really fun. But there's so many, I'm not seeing them because I'm skipping through. There's lots of effects you can add, such as filters. You can add text onto your screen, lots of font options. You can draw onto the screen while you're recording. You can add stickers, GIFs, photos, frames. You can even turn your screen into a whiteboard. Right now it's actually split screened, as you can see. So I have part background, part whiteboard. This camera does so many amazing things, and that is before you even have the ability to make like a screencast with it. They've added the option to be able to record your screen into Flipgrid. So you can be doing whiteboarding activities that are recorded. You can be doing graphic organizer activities that are recorded. You can do news reports, screencasts, and your students can do it too without having to download any extra or special software, which is really the key. So this is not going to take up extra time out of your students' time with you in the library. This new feature also minimizes you down into a corner, or you can be up front and center. So you can really highlight presentations and sort of make it very professional, polished looking. When you're all done recording your video, you can preview it, add music, add your information, and then submit. That in there. It will upload, and then you're done. You have the ability to download your video as well. So you can access student videos and save them for future reference. But what I really love about this is now you're having a library of videos, and they can be on just about any topic. This really can revolutionize reports with teachers that you might be working with that bring your students in to do research into the library. This can revolutionize book talks or book clubs. You can do it virtually using Flipgrid, using questions and prompts. You as a teacher can go in, view a recording. Let me flip over to my teacher tab here. I can view Holly's recording here. Come on. And then I can respond to Holly. I can add a comment. I can add a video comment to reply back to her. I can make it private just to her as well if I like. It's super accessible in that if you have students that are deaf or hard of hearing using sign language, everything is visual. If you have students that have audio processing issues, there is immersive reader where everything will be read to them. Literally every single thing is covered just using this one simple tool.
And also too, Colleen, that was great in sharing all that. I appreciate it. The nice thing about Flipgrid and having students be able to create videos, and then in addition, all of those other, as I said earlier, Jamboard, the bells and whistles, they're just not bells and whistles. They're able to provide voice and choice for students and teachers. For example, when we would do a research project, talk to me about what you want your reader to get out of, and having students be able to talk through and hear themselves talking through what they wanted their topic on. I didn't have to share it with everyone. If I did, that also worked with students to provide feedback on what their topic was or how they could be able to expand the topic to be able to make it a little bit more more finite for them, but ultimately allowing students the platform to be able to use their voice to communicate and then record and be able to re-record, pause, think, and then also have all those editing features was incredibly positive. In this case, what are you reading? You can do this collaboratively. What are you doing over the summer? If you're doing something with teachers, if you're doing a book study, if you're trying to get feedback for the library, students, what is the feedback from a book that you read? What would you like me to work on in your class? You can have students be able to collaborate here and share their ideas verbally. So yeah, Colleen, thank you.
Or even if you're not able to get into a classroom and like physically into the classroom, like the teacher can't schedule them, they can't get to your building, maybe you're in a different building. Students can be doing this in their classroom with their classroom teacher, and you are getting the responses on your computer wherever you may be. So you're able to have those virtual conferences on research or whatever it might be with students, even though you're not in the classroom. So it can make your time with them in the library much more efficient and impactful, because you've already gotten all this conferencing out of the way if you've done it ahead of time with something like Flipgrid.
Yeah, I used to do this with what topics, what do you like to do? And then be able to create a book cart for those students with different books that they would be interested in reading, to be able to foster that love for reading. So, and I also am able to connect with students and hear from them, and then be able to share in a safe space without other people listening possibly. So yeah, great tip there, Colleen.
Something else that I love about Flipgrid is their discovery tab. This used to be called the Disco Library, but they have changed it to the discovery tab. Flipgrid combined with Microsoft's sort of leverage and power, they are able to bring in lots of really amazing live speakers, tons of great authors come onto Flipgrid and do speaker events through Flipgrid. So in the past, they used to do Skype virtual field trips. That was Microsoft's big thing. And they've moved all of those resources onto Flipgrid. So that's where they are now, in case you didn't know. But for example, when we go to the first two things on here, we've got Cleveland Museum of Art has an entire section on here where you can go in and see different activities that you can pull into your classroom, created and curated by the Cleveland Museum of Art. I'm going to hop back into partners. They have partnered with so many amazing organizations. As you're looking through these, you're probably recognizing tons of them, because they're not just partnering with like random ed tech apps that you've never heard of. They've got things like Disney Hyperion, Epic, the Equal Justice Initiative. They've got dance companies. They've got Lego Education. They've got tons of great social justice resources like Decolonized. Keep going down. There's even ones that will walk you through tools. This Miss Excel one is all like tutorials. Nearpod connects with it. I mean, you name it, there are resources here for you, and they are good quality vetted resources, because they don't just slap any company on this page. So for example, we can hop into, let's go to the National World War II Museum in New Orleans, which if you've never been to, is an amazing museum on World War II. So if you are working with a classroom, they're doing a research project on World War II, whether it's high school or middle school, you can scroll through here, find different activities. For example, the Road to Pearl Harbor. You can preview the video, watch the activities, see the prompts that are there that they have created for you. If you like it, you can copy it directly into your classroom, so into your group, and then your students can engage with it. And this is a really well thought out, well planned, well researched lesson that all you have to do is click, and it is there and ready for you. This is wonderful. If you're helping out, like I know a lot of teachers and admin are getting pulled into sub in classrooms that are not necessarily their specialty. This could be a great sort of backup lesson to have in your back pocket if you are pulled into sub unexpectedly.
And ultimately, just to reiterate that, If you've never used Flipgrid, this is a great place to start because you don't have to recreate the wheel and you don't have to create everything from scratch. You can use things that are already there. Like Colleen said, already pre-curated things. There's Minecraft with it being associated with Microsoft, but then also if you're Google, you can also use all of these activities as well. There's SEL activities, different topics of what you're reading about to get your class started, to get that feedback and initiate that collaboration amongst students. So absolutely.
And so I'm just going to scroll down I'm back on the Discovery, just the homepage of the Discovery Library. If you scroll down past all of their tags, all of their tiles, all the way down here, this is their just general library. So you can search for anything that you might be looking for. So for example, maybe we're looking for something beyond the classroom and community. I can look at things for all, or I can drill down to a specific subset. And then from here, what I like to do is I like to use these are all filters of how many times they've been used. So usually if one has been used fairly frequently, that means it's a pretty good activity to pull in. This is the one that I used earlier. And then you can open it up and add it to your classroom.
And with us being an hour and sharing essentially 4 or 5, really 3 different ways to collaborate. If this is brand new to me or to you, and if you are anything like me, you'd probably be overwhelmed at this point. That is completely understandable. My suggestion for you is if you've never used Jamboard, go into the Jamboard that is in that slide presentation and check it out and just play with it. Now, Flipgrid, as you can see, there's multiple clicks, there's multiple pages upon pages. It's very stacked. So with Flipgrid, my advice for you with that is also click on Colleen's Flipgrid to experience just creating a Flipgrid and playing. Once you've done that, there is a link in the presentation that takes you to a badge page. If you're not wanting a badge, it's okay. But if you're wanting to learn Flipgrid on a little bit of a deeper level, if you see that, click here for a full list. Flipgrid has a great badge system tutorial that will take you through and teach you Flipgrid. And it really is amazing. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, take a breath, you're okay. You can go through these badges, and while you're earning a badge, you can also learn about Flipgrid. So a great place to start, play with it, and then feel free to check out what Flipgrid wants you or what they deem as most important at Flipgrid. And it'll take you through all those clicks that Colleen showed. Because like I said, if you're anything like me, you'd be like, wait, how did she get there? Where did she go?
Right. I can do 1 to 2 hours on Flipgrid.
Yes. Yep.
And I just did it in about 15 minutes. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, it's a great collaborative tool, but if you're brand new to it, at this point, be okay with being exposed and just play with it and see if it can suit your needs for collaboration with your students and teachers. So we're going to shift gears here between Padlet and Dotstorming, and we can kind of show both. Padlet is ultimately, it's a digital tool that helps teachers and students. It offers a place for a notice board, essentially. So if you go ahead and click slide 37 there, Colleen, let's explore Padlet together. It has a little bit more of a feel of Jamboard versus that multi-layered Flipgrid. So here we have our landing page. Colleen clicked because as you can see,
opened.
Well, as you can see with Padlet, you can add links like Colleen just did.
Yep.
Ultimately, this is a book every library needs to have. So if I was working with a bunch of librarians or teachers, I could share something at the beginning of the year, mid-year, and say, hey, can you add a book that every library needs from all of the teachers in the building, feeling like they have a voice of what they've shared. They're able to share with other teachers what they've read. It may spark some conversation between teachers, but ultimately this landing page is a board that people are able to post pins or cards to. In this case, I posted Haroon and the Sea of Stories. It is middle-aged school, but high schoolers could read it as well. It's one of my favorite books. But you'll notice here from observation, I have a fun background similar to Jamboard, and this is the book, which means we can import backgrounds, we can change the settings, we can add in the top left corner. I have a little emoji up there of the books. I can add emojis. And then ultimately, when Colleen, if you're on this on the bottom right-hand corner, can you add a card? There's a plus button here.
There it is. I was wondering where it was.
Yep,
hiding.
bottom right corner. Colleen then can add, if she wanted to collaborate to this, she could write her favorite book and then add the link there as well. There's templates for backgrounds. You can add links there. You can upload. You can add an image. And the other thing about Padlet is you can heart things. So if students, if you post to the class, please click the heart. If you've read a book here, you could then click and see how many hearts. Or if you had a list of 5 books, what book do we want to read as a staff together? And whatever book gets the most hearts, we read together. Almost kind of, you can use it as a voting board, but it's not quite a voting board like Dotstorming, which is the main difference between Padlet and Dotstorming, but they do get associated all the time together because they are so similar. There is a free version of both. There is a paid after 30 days, so something to be mindful of, but you can inquire if your school has a Padlet or Dotstorming. And you'll see here, Colleen, she's publishing she can change her background there. She changed hers to blue. And then I essentially can go in and click that little heart on hers if I wanted to essentially love it versus liking it. So Colleen, with time, I'm going to have you go back to a slide presentation really quickly. And I'm just going to show the difference between Padlet and Dotstorming. And like I said,
there's lots of Padlet resources in here. There's also, there's Flipgrid ones and Dotstorming ones down here too, it looks like.
Yep. Yeah, I think I've added. Yep. And then Dotstorming here, very similar. And also this, I know, right? This encourages the brainstorming, the planning, the decision making. But the main difference is that you can assign a number of votes per user. So here, this is one that I've used, and you can see all of the people that have collaborated on this. Their names are to the right. And essentially, this is, where are you at today? Let's figure out how many people in this room are feeling similar, dissimilar, stressed, focused, happy, bees, whatever. And in this case, I think everyone would get 1 vote or 2 votes, which means they can vote on 1 or 2 cards. But ultimately, with this, you can see how very similar to Padlet, the landing page is that board that I'm able to add images. I think I added 8 different images there. You can add GIFs. Students can add images as well. They can add text. If there's Colleen there adding an image as well to one of her cards. She can add a comment. You can comment on other people's cards. So for example, if someone's feeling bees, you maybe can encourage someone to put something down, add a quote if someone's feeling this way. What can they do to get out of the cage? And have students collaborate and share their own resources when they're feeling bees of how to get out of that cage. And then ultimately, like I said, you can see the participants. We can rank by votes. And this is really where the difference between Padlet and Dotstorming comes in is that voting feature, where
this is a lot more interactive in general.
Yeah. Where in Padlet, we had that opportunity to be able to heart things, but in Dotstorming, it is that next level. And you do get a free 30-day with the premium. But after that, you would have to pay that your school can put a, contact for a bid for the school person, how many students or how many users. You can create a quick list to or you can create a quick way to prioritize, like Colleen said there, by the ranking. And ultimately, it creates a sense of engagement and allows participants to see the decision process in action. So I really like Dotstorming. I like all 3 of these. It just depends for me, the user, what I'm trying to share and what I'm trying to get out of teachers or students. But nonetheless, we are all able to live in one place at the same time.
Right. All right. Let's see what else we got here. So as a reminder, as you go through our slide deck, there are some instructional screen grabs that are there waiting for you to help remind you where to go as you go through both Padlet and Dotstorming, because we didn't spend as much time there. So lots of resources are available to you in this slide deck. So don't forget to bookmark that slide deck. And I believe that is our last thing that we have on here other than that badges. Don't forget to click for that full list of badges.
Yeah, I
and
believe
select that.
Flipgrid is on there.
Yep.
Jamboard does not have a badge, and Dotstorming and Padlet do not either. But if you wanted to go through that Flipgrid, or if you are just anything like me and you love badges and certifications, feel free to check out what other ed tech apps you use. I will also mention, if you have students in your class, feel free to allow them to earn a badge. It is not just for educators. If you want your students to be able to maximize these applications, have them go through the badging, because we all learn something in that process. Because these vendors are the ones that are saying, this is what's most important, that we deem as really an important part of this tool. So I think with 5 minutes remaining, we're going to allow anyone to, I know we have a really short, well, no, we are on 3. So we're really small here.
You and Matt.
Yeah, me and Matt. Well, Matt, do you have any questions at all, or do you have any feedback there?
No, I think you've done a great job. I really like that those activities, those layered activities that you shared. I've been a big fan of Padlet and Dotstorming for years, so love these kind of a new take on some classic tools. Love that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for hosting, Matt. We appreciate it.
No problem. Since it looks like our attendees have left for right now, we will have this up on YouTube within a day or so, and like to remind everyone listening to the recording to visit our website, ltcillinois.org/events/webinars to sign up for future webinars. Remember, for live attendance, you can earn PD credit. With that, I think we'll call this a wrap. Thanks, Colleen. Thanks, Holly, for sharing your expertise with us today.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, bye-bye.